Thank you for tuning in to the Clay Edwards Show here on your social media app of choice. We're in YouTube jail this week, so maybe you're seeing this on Facebook, Rumble, X, or maybe it's on my backup YouTube channel. Who knows? Anyway, we got a great story from over here at Magnolia Tribune. This one slid under the radar. I missed it last week. Oh, Sid Salter says Mississippi is burdened with the nation's highest rates of gun deaths and gun violence. Who, 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 who could possibly be responsible for Mississippi having the highest rates of gun deaths and gun violence? Well, I'm glad you asked. Stick around to the end of the article, and we're going to tell you who is the reason behind Mississippi having the highest rates of gun deaths and gun violence. This is the Clay Edwards Show. Real quick, this segment is brought to you by Men's Health of Mississippi. Guys, get your free testosterone screening today. Are you suffering from fatigue, decreased muscle tone, lack of energy, low libido, that's your sex drive, brain fog, or sleep disturbances? Text my name, Clay, all caps, to 601 327 8550. That's 601 327 8550. Just text Clay, and they're going to get you hooked up with a free testosterone screening from Men's Health of Mississippi. Trust me, you'll thank me for it later. Your significant other will probably send me a Christmas card thanking me for it later. Get your love life back on track. Get your motivation back on track. Get your testosterone back on track. It ain't just 40-year-olds, guys, 25 and older. You've been eating a modern diet. You probably need to go get your levels checked. I learned today that a current 21-year-old American has a lower testosterone count than a 66-year-old World War II veteran did 20 or so years ago. Go get your levels checked today. Men's Health of Mississippi. All right, let's dive in. Mississippi is burdened with the nation's highest rates of gun deaths and gun violence. This is a story over at Magnolia Tribune. Y'all be sure to bookmark Magnolia Tribune for some of the best writing in the state, especially from a bit of a conservative viewpoint. But I would not call it right-leaning either, because they don't try to shove a narrative down your throat. All right. As a columnist, Sid Salters writes, young people are settling what seems to be insanely inconsequential differences and disputes with deadly force using guns. In the rural South, we are conditioned to self-image of small communities like fictional Mayberry, where crime and violence are almost non-existent, and the real dangers from gun violence lurk in the streets and back alleys of Chicago, New York, Detroit, and Los Angeles. However, that the mean streets are not limited to the big cities. Rural Mississippians now live squarely in locales prone to gun violence. We don't live in Mayberry in the rural South. We live in a region and a state with a dangerous rate of gun deaths and gun violence. And we are, as a state, among the nation's leaders in household gun ownership. Amen to that. The adage in television news is if it bleeds, it leads. In Mississippi, the first 10 minutes of virtually every newscast recount shootings that occur with such frequency as it becomes commonplace. And I can vouch for that with making my videos and doing what I do online and hosting a 2-hour radio show, one of the largest TikTok and Instagram platforms of anybody in local media. If it bleeds, it in fact leads. But people are in fact getting numb to it, as I've watched my numbers come down a good 20, 30% just since the turn of the year. I think people are getting burnt out on fear porn, so to say. Anyway, in Mississippi, we consistently and strongly support the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms for hunting, and self-protection. Mississippi does little to interfere with those rights of gun ownership, possession, and use or acquisition of firearms. We are an open carry state, a castle doctrine state, a stand your ground state, and one with what are considered by the National Rifle Association and other pro-gun entities as some of the most Second Amendment-friendly gun laws in the country. Hell yeah, I'm a Mississippian. Y'all say we're so bad at everything. We're last place for everything. I'll tell you what, I'll take being up in first place for gun rights. Hell yeah, I'm an American. Anyway, at the same time, liberal or progressives entities supporting limits on Second Amendment rights label Mississippi as having the worst gun laws in the country. I guess it really is all about your perspective. The Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence, named for gun violence victim former U.S. Rep. Gabrielle Giffords of Arizona, describes Mississippi's gun laws as follows. Quote, Mississippi has the weakest gun laws in the country and the highest gun death rate. The state passed the dangerous permitless carry law in 2016, which allows almost anyone to carry hidden, loaded guns in public without a background check or law enforcement oversight. That is not true. If you buy the gun from a gun store, you do in fact have to have a background check. So that's a little blurring of the lines there. From across the political spectrum in the gun law debate, there is ample hyperbole and alarmistic rhetoric. But the fact is that the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention has ranked Mississippi as having the highest rate of gun deaths in the country at 29.6 per 100,000 residents. That's just over double the national rate of 14.2 gun deaths per 100,000 residents. Well, what happens here is a lot of people F around and a lot of people have to find out. And that is how they find out. Then they get one of these shirts and it says F around and find out. You can buy that at buyfafo.com. Anyway, Mississippi was an early milepost in the nation's litany of school shootings when student Luke Woodham killed his mother at their home, then drove to Pearl High School and fatally shot 2 students and wounded 7 others on October 1st, 1997. That shooting was a little more than a year after Jackson firefighter Kenneth Torrance killed his wife at home, then drove to Jackson Central Fire Station and killed 4 of his supervisors. I actually went to school with one of the guy's sons that was murdered that day. He raced dirt track cars forever. I don't know whatever happened to him, but I did have a buddy of mine whose dad was killed that day. And I know a lot of people who were at Pearl that day. I graduated Byram the year before, and I was already working. And I'll never forget where I was. I was riding on a beer truck for Capital City Beverage, and we were actually coming through Rankin County, and you start seeing all the cop cars and everything coming through. And then you get the story on the radio, because that's how you had to get stuff back in 97, was there had been a school shooting at Pearl. So I'll just never forget where I was when that story came down. Very tragic. So that was a quarter century ago. Now the scourge of gun violence has become more commonplace and pedestrian. Young people are settling what seems to be insanely inconsequential differences and disputes with deadly force using guns. Do what you do, but watch my shoes. That's so silly, man. They have a little online beef. Somebody will put an emoji making fun of somebody somewhere. Next thing you know, folks are getting killed over it. This modern generation, it's weird to call them weak because they're obviously not scared to shoot, but they're weak because they'd rather shoot than take a lick. So no respect from me for them. No respect. We call them the little Taliban here. There's a little South Jackson gang called the Taliban, and that's just what they are. They're terrorists. They're running around terrorizing the city. And every time one FAFOs, I have no sympathy for him, for his family, for any of them. No sympathy. You raise trash, somebody takes the trash out, end of the story. But like a bunch of cockroaches, they just reform, and you got 10 more. I have no time for sympathy. Anyway, last year, a study published in the Journal of American Medical Association's Surgery found that firearm deaths are more likely in small rural towns than in major urban centers. Data from the CDC showed that politically red states had the highest firearm mortality rates, while the politically blue states held lower firearm mortality rates. In Mississippi, 2020 research showed that of gun deaths, 47% were suicides and 47% were homicides. That compared with 61% suicides and 36% homicides nationally that year. From a practical political standpoint, legislation restricting Second Amendment rights is a non-starter at the Mississippi State Capitol. But Mississippi's increasingly consistent rank as the state with the highest rate of gun deaths should concern conservatives and liberals alike. The National Institute on Minority, and here's where we get to the end of this, and we're going to find out whose fault is it? The National Institute on Minority Health and Health Disparities reports that the greatest impact of rising gun deaths rates is Black youth. The group cited that the rate of gun-related deaths for Black youths has increased every year since 2013, with a whopping 108.3% increase from 2013 to 2020. Let's say that one more time. A 108.3% increase from 2013 to 2020 compared to a 47.8% increase for white youth during the same time period. So let that soak in. The state with the highest percentage of population of Black youth, you guessed it, Mississippi, with 42.9. So there's always this old trope about red states being the deadliest for gun violence, but if you remove the blue cities out of those red states, it would be minuscule. Jackson, Mississippi last year. Why don't we pull up Jackson's homicide numbers here? And we'll take a look at those real quick. Y'all know I like doing this. So here we go. Crime. Jackson homicides. Let me pull that up there. Here we go. Sitting at 58 for this year already. So let's look at it here. So since 2020, there was 133 in 2020, which was up a huge number. It had been floating around the mid 80s, 84 in 2018, 83 in 2019. Then the COVID year hit, and boom, these little Talibanian thugs lost their mind. This is just Jackson right here. This is nowhere else. 133 homicides. Then the next year, the mother lode in 2021, 160 homicides. 2022, 138. And 2023, it has come down a little bit, all thanks to the Capitol Police coming in and taking over around 2021. So we got 118. 118. So then, of course, this year we're on pace with 58. Now, I don't know how to find all of the data to tell you how many more homicides the entire state of Mississippi had, but I have enough data to tell you that all of Mississippi combined didn't have as much as Jackson had. And you got these little brother and sister cities like Canton, just north of Jackson here, that is 90% Black, roughly. There's 10,700 citizens. 8,200 of them are Black. They've had 6 homicides this year, and at least another 12 to 13 people shot. 5 of those shootings were Saturday night or Saturday morning, and 1 homicide. And the second time they've had a big whop like that. So it's the, people don't like hearing this. People get mad at me when I bring up race stuff. But at the end of the day, it is the young Black youth not knowing how to have conflict resolution. That thinking that the first thing they're supposed to do is just shoot somebody. No working through it. No, hey, bro, what can we do to avoid this? Nope, it's just point, pull. It's all feelings and emotions. There's no consequences or there's no concept of consequences and repercussions until it's too late, and no conflict resolution skills. So, unfortunately, in a city like Jackson, where what they should be doing is sometimes you just got to call a spade and say, hey, look, it's a lot rougher in these black areas. We're going to have to police this a little differently. It just is what it is. Stop and frisk. Stop and frisk. Start pulling some folks over that just look like thugs. You know, you see some young dudes with a gun, check their ID. I think if you're open carrying, you should be able to have to run a background check right there on the spot. Oh, you a felon with a firearm? Not today, Satan. Not today. You know, you got to start doing some profiling. It just is what it is. If you wake up every day and your goal is to look like your favorite drug dealer or gangster rapper that's constantly on TV talking about drug dealing and killing and pimping and violence and constantly law breaking, if your goal is to dress and look identical to them and drive identical to what they drive, you're inviting yourself to be profiled. It just is what it is, dog. You know, if you ain't riding dirty, don't ride dirty. It ain't no big deal. Just say, hey, dog, I'm good. I'm straight. I ain't riding dirty. Have a nice day. Live to fight another day. But we know that ain't how it is. Anyway, so that's another day. Good article there at Magnolia Tribune. Can't recommend them enough. If you actually like a little more somewhat long form, readable content, bookmark them today. MagnoliaTribune.com. We'll take a look at it just one more time here, just so you guys can see the screenshot there, because I think the good folks, man, like old Russ Latino and the team that works for him over there. Here we go. There it is. Don't forget, Men's Health of Mississippi. Text my name, Clay, to 601-327-8550. Get your free testosterone screening today. 601-327-8550. Text my name, Clay. Let me know how it all works out. I know you'll be thanking me later. Your old lady will be thanking me later. It's like, oh, it woke it up. It woke our love life back up. I've gotten so many thank you calls and texts from significant others and my friends that have gone and done it, and my listeners. So y'all get over there. Tune into the radio show every Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., 103.9 FM, WYAB, right here in Central Mississippi. If you missed the live show, the podcast is always available. I'm constantly making videos. Follow me online. It's at SaveJXN. Or worst case scenario, go to my website, clayedwardsshow.com. Peace out.